son, where'd you find this?
Don't be offended by the truth. They be offended because you called out the truth. Simple as that. They don't want to hear any other narrative that makes them look bad.
One thing I can't stand at this big grown age is somebody who acts like cause and effect does not exist. Like, yes, your actions caused this outcome. Yes, what you did lit the match. Like, why are you surprised and playing victim?
Guys, Chico. They never lie.
That's how you know somebody doesn't respect you. They listen to reply, not to be understood. They cut you off. They minimize what actually matters to you. They laugh at your boundaries, and then they call you sensitive when you try to hold the line. They show up late, they cancel last minute, forget the things you've told them, because in their world, your time, your energy, even your voice aren't a priority. They're just an option. You see, there are two kinds of people. Those who adjust when they realize they've actually hurt you, and those who expect you to adjust so they don't have to change. You don't need to be disrespected loudly to be disrespected deeply. Sometimes you'll see it. It's just in their tone, in their patterns, in the silence after you're known. Respect isn't what they say when they're watching. It's how they act when they think you'll.
Examining his own attitude towards the possibilities of peace, towards the civil union, towards the course of the Cold War.
It was a way of making me feel that they were a part of it.
You see it on the screen. If the government had to change school in the screen, they got to shut it down, they got state pupils out there, they got brains flow, they got the brains machine.
Peace and blessings to the good folks. Happy Wednesday. I hope all is well. Let me bring that up real quick. Cool. We got you covered. I hope all is well with everybody. Shout out to my poets, my writers, my content creators. I hope all is well. I hope the week is treating you well. You know what time it is. We have another special edition here. I got Sydney in attendance. This is the segment where we get to unlock some stuff just in our brain that we probably wasn't tapping into. One of my favorite segments of the week. What's going on?
Hello. Not too much. I guess kind of a bit. One, we had a pretty big storm last night. We had 35, 40 mile an hour winds yesterday, which was pretty unusual for this region. Usually we only get like 10 to 15 miles an hour. But it was enough to literally blow. We have one of those like outdoor swings. And it was enough to blow that over. It knocked over our grill. Like we have one of those big barbecues. And it was very loud. It definitely, like, I kept looking outside expecting to see a tornado because of how loud it was. But to my disappointment, no tornado. But I know my community members are happy that there was no tornado. But yeah, we've had some pretty crazy wind in the last 24 hours. So that was pretty different, pretty interesting. In my own life, a lot has actually happened in the last week. The gallery that my art was in is now closing. So I no longer have a physical installation of my art anymore, sadly. I'll still be doing work with them. Like I'll still have events and stuff like that, but she's closing the physical location because for health reasons. So that has ended that part of that chapter. But I did have a very long conversation with my publisher today, so that ball is rolling a lot more. So God closes a door and opens a window, or whatever the full saying is. So I'm still on my way with something. It's just now more with my books than both my art and my books. So I'm still very much excited for the process of getting my book out there. In theory, it could be like 2 to 3 months by the time I have an actual physical book ready. So I'm excited to have started that, or to be further into that process. I don't want to say start the process because I've had this book written for like a year, but yeah, the continuation of the process. So it's been a busy, hectic week, but yeah, I'm glad to be here. I always am excited and enjoy doing these segments, being able to talk about things that I'm passionate about with other people that are also passionate and interested. I know this one will be a little bit different because it's not my nitty-gritty scientific type topics, talking about destruction and volcanoes and tornadoes, but it's still very much related to the work I do, the things I'm interested in, and in this climate, political climate, informational climate, social media climate, I think it's a very important topic to discuss. So I'm excited to get into it.
Well, look, the floor is yours. Do as you will. I will be right here listening alongside.
All right. So this topic will be a little bit more academically focused rather than like scientifically focused, even though they are kind of intertwined. The reason I picked this topic today is because for those of you that are not familiar with who I am, I'm on social media. I'm on Blue Sky, which is the better version of Twitter. And I, on my social media account, I talk a lot about politics. I like to repost articles that are interesting to me, that I think are impactful of people. I like to bring attention to a lot of the stuff that's going on in the world and in the country. I won't name any names, but there's a lot going on. People trying to disenfranchise populations. And yeah, just there's a lot going on. A lot's happening really fast, a lot of policies, a lot of news. And so it can be a lot to keep up with. And the other day I reposted something that somebody else had posted. And I didn't do my due diligence. I didn't look into what I was reposting. I definitely was doing it from more of an emotional standpoint. And a bunch of people that follow me brought it to my attention that was not only an old piece of news, but it also was factually incorrect. It was not relevant. It was not, as I said, accurate. And so that triggered me to want to talk about this topic because my goal as an influencer, I wouldn't say I'm definitely at the level of an influencer, but I like to consider myself that with my how I operate. I mostly repost informational topics, videos, articles talking about important issues. And so I view myself as an influencer because it does guide how I post and how I interact with people online. But when it came to my attention that I had reposted something that was incorrect, that was wrong, I had already been accumulating a lot of likes and reposts on that particular piece of information. And so it really made me kind of reflect on how I repost information, how I consider the things that I'm posting, and the integrity of the types of things that are put out there. Because for myself, if I find out that I have reposted or posted something that was not correct, because of the way that I was academically raised, not with my parents, but with school. Again, for those of you that don't know me, I have my bachelor's degree in psychology. I have my master's degree in environmental education. And through the rigors of academics, you learn, especially within science, how to vet your sources, how to provide information that's factually correct, how to identify whether the information is correct or not. And when I make mistakes like that, I feel obligated to announce to the people that are viewing my post that I made a mistake, that I put something up there that was not real, that was false, that was made up, whatever the situation is. And I had a lot of positive feedback from people that saw me apologize for putting out incorrect information. And so that made me want to do my talk today on informational integrity, because I think this is a really big issue affecting us across the board, whether we know it or not. It's just not something that's really talked about. And I don't think that it's a skill that a lot of people have actually developed. Chances are, if you've been in academia, you've probably developed it to a degree, because of the type of education training that they do, especially if you're going to be going into research. They really hone in your skills on like making sure that you give people credit for sources for their work, making sure that you're using sources that are actually accurate and valid for your work. But for lay people, those who haven't been going through academic avenues, I feel like it's not a skill that a lot of people have, and vastly more people use the internet, social media, than have degrees like that. So I wanted to kind of do a talk on that, not only why it's important, but also understanding the information around it and how to identify the types of sources that you're getting your information from. Because providing good information is not just good for the people, the readers, but it's also good for your own reputation. When you're posting things on social media, whether or not it's for work purposes, your hobbies, or whatever you might be doing, freelancing, if you're a scientist, if you're just a ordinary person doing it just for fun, your reputation can be affected by the type of information you put out there. I'm sure we could come up with numerous examples of people on the news, celebrities, scientists, politicians, you name it, who have gotten in trouble for promoting fake information or falsities because they the least bad didn't know, or the most, they're doing it on purpose because they're trying to like manipulate their viewers. So providing good information on social media, it helps ourselves. It helps create a better image of ourselves because it shows that we actually care about the information we're putting out there. We're not just saying things just because it's getting us views. But then also it's for the safety of the readers. Sure, things can be as mundane as like passing along celebrity gossip that's not true and doesn't really do that much harm. Like maybe at most it's like a gimmicky, stupid story. But at the worst, it can cause a lot of issues. We've already kind of seen the villainization of science, and how a lot of, especially with COVID, with vaccinations, with climate change, a lot of other areas, the reputation of professionals has been diminished because false information is passed around, which people end up believing. And that makes the people who actually know their stuff look like they're lying or making it up. Of course, it is sad there are professionals that do also pass around fake or exaggerated information. But by allowing misinformation to proliferate, we're still doing damage to the actual research that exists, the actual science that's out there, and it casts shadows of doubts on information that is accurate, and it makes people question, or not even understand how to question what's real and what's not. I still, to this day, like, I have a very deep scientific background, but sometimes I can't always tell the difference between something that is being passed around just because it sounds cool, or something that is just been like it was a mistake or whatever. There's a lot of conspiracy theories out there, a lot of scientific misinformation, and this misinformation can be deadly. It can't, not all circumstances, but with particularly like medical health and like giving advice about dangerous situations and stuff like that, it can actually cause damage to people who read it. It also, by spreading misinformation, it can enrich those that are profiting off of putting out this bad information. This would be the case particularly for people who are pretending to be professionals, who are politicians, who are influencers just making money off of their clicks and ads. So it's important for us as both consumers of social media and as posters on social media to limit the spread of false information and to put a lot more thought into the types of content that we are reposting, the types of information that we're passing around, because it allows the people that, as I said, who benefit from this spread to get further in their pursuits, whatever their intentions are. So yeah, that's why I wanted to kind of go over a lot of the stuff that I'm going to talk about today, for ourselves as readers, for ourselves as sharers of information, so we can become better stewards of information and do more, pay more attention to the impact that our posts have. Because whether we like to believe it or not, even one single post can spread rapidly. So we do make a difference in how information is spread. And the more people that actually care about what they're putting out there, the better off we'll all be. The more accurate the information on the internet will be. And we might get to a point eventually, hopefully, fingers crossed, where the internet or social media is in a complete cesspool of poor information. So that brings me to my next point, or next question, I guess, to explore. Why is bad information proliferating on social media? Because obviously, most of us, when we think of social media, a lot of people associate it with like clickbait and just ridiculous content. Like, that's the place that you go if you want to find fringe theories, conspiracy theories, wild information, manufactured images, like you name it. If it's been invented in somebody's mind, it's going to be on social media somewhere. So social media is a lot more misinformation on social media is a lot more pervasive because a couple different reasons. One, it has a very, very low barrier for accuracy. Number one, the spread is much easier. All it takes is a click, a repost, a single heart for it to enter into the algorithm. It doesn't take very much for that information to get passed around from person to person. Unlike an article where you have to share, copy the link, put it in somewhere else, and whatnot. When you see a post, you just click and it's somewhere else. So it's very easy for this information to be spread in the first place. There's also a very low barrier for it to be put there in the first place. With newspaper articles, with YouTube videos, with like things that are put out by like organizations, there's more work that has to be put in to the creation of that particular thing, especially if you're posting on behalf of an organization or a group, a scientific community, whatever the purpose of the website is. There's more eyes that have to view this and vet it and make sure that it's accurate. Your reputation is not the only one. The business's reputation is important. So there's more social barriers between you and the dissemination of that information. So even if you want to put the information out there, there's still more eyeballs it has to pass in front of before they can be like, yeah, you can put that out there. But on social media, it's basically whatever you want to put, you can do it. You can do whatever you want within the guidelines of the whatever site you're on. And so this low barrier for entry and low barrier for dissemination leads to a higher prevalence of click and rage bait. Like you're going to see a lot more people just putting whatever out there because it's getting them views. Unfortunately, with the way social media works, clickbait drives engagement. When you put stuff up there, it doesn't matter if it's true. It doesn't matter if it's accurate. It doesn't matter if it's something of value. If it instigates somebody to be emotional, it's going to be spread. You don't really have to do much for clickbait type content because the emotions that drive people to repost it, whether it's like, I can't believe they said this, or this makes me so angry, or this blah, 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 whatever it is. Like, I admit that's what I fell victim to. When I reposted what I reposted yesterday, I reposted it because it was essentially rage bait. And this driving engagement means it's going to end up spreading faster. Because as we know with the algorithm, if it's getting a lot of clicks, it's going to be pushed more into the stream. And when you are in the algorithm, you're going to see more viewership growth. And so it can be very easy for people to make a social media career just on clickbait. I mean, we've seen it even on YouTube. I admittedly like watching content of like really crazy YouTubers that do stupid things for views, just because I find it like it encourages emotions. Like I'm like disbelief and anger and like, what the bleep are they doing? And that type of content gets a lot of views for that very reason. When you are able to get someone emotional about something, they're more likely to share it because they're going to want to have other people around them also commiserating or sharing those feelings with them. They want to show their friends, be like, bro, did you see that? Did you see what that person said? So bad information thrives on social media because it's very easy for it to spread, and it's a very effective way to get engagement on your profile. And it doesn't matter if you want that, it doesn't matter if the information is fake or not. If it gets eyeballs, if it gets people talking and arguing and like being upset about it, it's going to go very far. And then when you combine that with the fact that we as humans in this type of world right now, we have a very small attention span. We we get mad at one thing and 5 minutes later we're on something new. This also allows us to perpetuate myths with very limited awareness of what we're doing. We can get mad, repost it, and then move on to the next topic. Repost that one, move on to the next topic, move on to the next one. Sorry, I keep itching my nose. I don't know why. Like the end of my nose is just like tingling. It's making it itchy. Ignore me for that reason. But this lack of attention span lets people spread this information and not even know what they're doing. I doubt. I don't know what the actual statistics are. I don't even think they've done research on this, or at least if they have done research, it's probably very limited in their what's the word I want to use? Like, they probably haven't touched a lot of the population. It's probably just like small segments of the population. But just from what I know, I doubt people actually check, verify the information that they're spreading. When people are on social media, most people are on social media to zone out. They're there because they're bored. They want something to do. They're out of habit, and so it's not an academically stimulating activity for most people. And I doubt people are going to leave social media just to investigate the article that they read or the individual quote or the post or whatever picture that they're seeing, just to come back and be like, no, this isn't true, so I'm not going to repost it. Most people are just going to see it. I like it. I'm going to repost it. I see it. I don't need to repost that. But I don't think a lot of people really put a lot of thought into what they're posting. And so that's another factor that allows bad information to spread rapidly on social media, because there really isn't much thought into the type of information that is allowed to spread on social media. Being on Blue Sky, it does give me faith that we have the potential to be better. I do notice a lot when something is out there that is incorrect. There are a lot of people in the comments that are like, hey, this is not actually true. This is inaccurate. This is old. This is whatever. But then I also see stuff from Facebook and Twitter and even YouTube. Like, they have their fair share of fake stuff. And especially with AI now too, where it is alarming to me in a way to see how little effort is put into informational integrity anymore, particularly within social media spheres. It's something that professionals of all types of careers are dealing with. I hear it from doctors. I hear it from scientists, climate scientists, from political experts, of how much fake information is spread out there, and a majority of it does come from social media, Twitter, TikTok, you name it. So yeah, social media allows this type of stuff to proliferate, just because it's so easy to do. And I definitely understand it. I myself, as I said, have fallen victim to it, on both ends, where I have provided information that a bunch of people are like, that's not true. I saw it on social media that it was XYZ instead. And it's hard. Like, I've argued with people that have used the argument, well, I've seen it on this other source once, so you're wrong, just because I've seen it somewhere else as something different. I've had it happen with my own friends and family members, where they were saying, well, this one person said that it was actually this, so all of the research that you did must be null and void because this one person said it was actually this. So it can be very frustrating, which is why we need to educate more on how to maintain an informational integrity on social media sites, and also how to make sure that we aren't participating in the other side, that we aren't the ones perpetuating bad information. So one of the first things that I wanted to find, because I see this being used incorrectly a lot. It's a very common, popular word in the media right now. But the difference between misinformation and disinformation, misinformation with the M is false or inaccurate information. It's, you've gotten the facts wrong. You are providing things that are selective or half truths, or just poorly described. It's information that's just wrong. And usually, or with misinformation, this is typically shared by people who don't actually know. It's incorrect because the person didn't have the awareness that what they were spreading was deceptive or incorrect or wrong. On the flip side, disinformation with a D, that is deliberate. Disinformation is when a group of people, a single person, whatever, whoever is doing this, is doing so attempting to deceive. They are purposely providing information that is not correct. They're trying to manipulate your opinion. They are trying to guide people in the wrong direction to get what they want. The big difference between misinformation and disinformation is the intent. Disinformation or misinformation with an M is usually by accident or is a result of, like, they didn't know what they were doing. Whereas disinformation, they know exactly what they're doing, and they are giving you bad information because they want to misguide you. Misinformation is typically what you get from people who just are innocent and just don't know what they're doing. Disinformation, that's what you can expect from a shady politician or a business person that's trying to make you look a different direction, or individuals that are trying to make you think a certain way. And it's important for us to know the difference, because it allows us to further decipher the sources that we're using to understand the intentions of that information, because misinformation can be partially correct. You can have some information in there that is right, or it could be out of context. It could be it could be partially accurate, and it could just be a misspeak, or be for like more innocent reasons. Whereas if somebody's providing you disinformation, that is somebody you don't want to take information from in the future, because they're showing you that they don't care. They want you to misunderstand, and they want you to have the wrong information. There's one in the middle that is it's kind of a mix of the two. It's not as commonly discussed as misinformation and disinformation, but there's also malinformation, which is, it's a fact, but it's been taken out of context on purpose in an effort to manipulate. And this very, very common with Bible verses. I'll see people use it against groups of people where they say, oh, well, the Bible says this about such and such group. But then if you read the full part of the Bible verse or section, you'll see that it is not actually how they're saying. It's not how the Bible writers intended for it to be interpreted. But it's kind of like a combination of the two, where they're manipulating the information in a way that allows you to think a certain way about that information, even if that interpretation is incorrect. So it's still true, but the way they want you to interpret it is not true. This is something that's also very common with politicians that are trying to sway you about different things. I've seen it with abortion discussions. I've seen it with vaccination discussions. I've seen it with climate change. You name it, the typical hot button topics, you'll probably see people trying to do this. But understanding these types of informational errors is important, because it, as I said, it allows you to understand who you're getting your information from, who you can trust, who you can't trust. And it also helps you with the future of, like, for example, if you go to a particular news site and they very frequently are posting information out of context and are using malinformation, you know not to use them as a source anymore, because you're like, they are not reliable. They're trying to manipulate me into a certain direction. You see this on what do you call it? Like the interest groups. Like if you go to like a pro-life website, they're probably going to be using these tactics, because they're heavily on one side and they want you to agree with their opinions. So they're only giving you the things that will make you agree with their opinions. A truly reputable source should be giving you both sides. When we learn how to write research papers, when I was in college, especially if you are going to, I mean, not especially if you're going to be publishing, it really should be the case all the time, but it's mandatory if you are publishing, but you really should be doing this all the time. When you are making your research paper, you've done all your research, you've found all your sources, your whatever, and you've done whatever your task was, whether it's doing a survey, doing like, there's different types of research, but basically you'll always have your outcomes that you describe at the end of your paper. And when you describe your outcomes at the end of the paper, your results, what you found, how you found these results, where you got your information, you also have to touch on the shortcomings, the things that you might have missed, your blind sides, things that you might have affected the results that you are providing. And truly reputable scientific sources will have a breakdown of like, yeah, this is what we found, this is what we think based on the results. However, this could have affected our results. This could be another reason for these findings. These are the limitations of our studies. Like this is the type of like this. These are future directions we could take with our research to further investigate these things that we don't know that we found in our writing. And it's very, very important as an academic, as somebody putting out information, that you touch on the areas that are ambiguous, that are open-ended, that could have other versions of interpretations, that could be affected by cultural perspective or whatever. It does vary very much by the area you're in, whether it's science, whether it's history, whether it's social system and stuff like that. But in general, scientists, to show true integrity, they have to question their own methods, their own integrity, their own limitations, and show that they don't know everything. One of the most iconic moments that I remember in school, when I was in my bachelor's degree, our teacher was talking about the process of getting your PhD. And this always stuck with me because I think it really encapsulates the goal of science and the way science truly needs to be. When you go in for your PhD, your purpose is to vouch for what you did, to explain how what you did is beneficial and whatnot. However, it's not to prove that you're an expert in the field. It's not to prove that you know everything and that your study solved it all. If you come in there like, yeah, this is what we found and this is what it means and that's it, they won't be happy. They want to know, well, what did you learn? How can you improve? How can this be extended into other things? What are new directions this study can take? What are your shortcomings? Where did you mess up? Where can you do better next time? They want to know more about the potential growth of that topic, not the end all be all, I did this. As scientists, science is a rolling ball. It's not a monument. When you are a scientist, you are just adding on to what is already known and expanding the areas that we don't know. And that is something you have to keep in mind when we're sharing information, because one, we have to recognize that we can't know everything. And by kind of being obstinate and being like, well, no, I know this because I read it in this one place, or, oh, I know this because multiple people have said the same thing, so it must be true. That devalues and cuts away at the integrity of information, because just because a lot of people say it does not mean that it's actually correct information. And so we have to decouple frequency and validity, reliability of these sources. So since I said that, let me define the difference between those two, because they sound like they're interchangeable, but validity and reliability are two very different things, but they're both very important to understand, especially when you're trying to decipher what type of information is good or not. When something is reliable, Think of it as like, oh, our car is reliable, because it means that it's consistent and replicable. So a reliable test is something that every time you take the test, it'll give you consistent results. You know that whenever you take this test, it's going to give you an accurate answer, and it's something that you can use over and over and over again to get the results that you're expecting. So a very simple one, like a thermometer. A thermometer is very reliable because as long as it's not broken, you can expect that if you put the thermometer in your mouth, you're going to get the temperature of the body. And you can do that over and over and over again, and you're going to get the body temperature, because that is a reliable measure of body temperature. And when something is reliable, particularly a study, that's why scientists do the same study over and over and over again, to make sure that the way that they're testing whatever they're testing is accurate. Because you don't want to think that you have a measure. Like, for example, SATs. That is something that has been determined to be a reliable measure of somebody's skill in math and writing and reading, and I think other stuff. But yeah, if it now imagine if people who got high scores on the SAT were routinely coming out terrible at math, and they had no idea how to do any math, and for whatever reason it was saying that they scored high in math but they could not do math. Eventually people would be like, I don't think the SAT is an actual reliable measure. This is why teachers have to go to programs and stuff like that to understand how to write tests and how to create measures that will verify if their students are actually learning or not, because they need to make sure that the things that they're doing are reliable, that the lessons that they provide, the tests that they take or give to their kids are actually resulting in kids learning. So yeah, that's reliability. It's when a test, when when research, studies, whatever it is showing again and again the same results using the same measures. On the flip side, there's validity. Validity means that it measures what it's meant to measure. So, for example, we'll go back to the thermometer. Imagine if you use the thermometer and it was giving you your heartbeat number, your BPM. That is not a valid thermometer, because it's supposed to be measuring your temperature. And if it's not measuring your temperature, it's not a valid instrument. It is broken. There's something wrong with it. Somebody messed up somewhere. But it's different because with reliability, you're showing that you can get the same result over and over again using the same tools, whereas validity makes sure that the tools are actually measuring what they're meant to measure. So they do go hand in hand, but it's important to know these two things, because it allows you to understand if the source that you're getting your information from is actually a place worthy of your attention. Because if you try to use a source, as I said earlier, that is constantly giving you information that is incorrect, they're not going to be a reliable source. They're not going to be consistent. The types of information that you get from them are not going to be trustworthy, because you don't know if their next article is going to be true or not. And then validity would apply because you, for example, if you are trying to get medical advice, you're probably not going to want to look at YouTube. Maybe you can get some basic advice, but like if you're trying to get advice on, like, I need the specific medication for this specific disease and I need to know how much I should be taking and whatever, you're not going to go to YouTube. You're going to go to a doctor, because the doctor knows what they're doing, theoretically. But they know how to understand what you need and how to find the best thing for you. I don't know if that was the best example, but validity allows you to you should be getting the information from the people that are actually experts in that particular information. Because if you're trying to get car advice from your doctor, you're probably going to have some car issues. Whereas if you try to get medical advice from your car technician, you're probably not going to be getting very good information. So understanding if the person that you're getting this information from is actually able to give you good information is very important to know. You should be checking the sources of who you're getting your information from. And when you find things on social media, you should be looking at, where did this originally come from? And it could be as simple as taking the quote, putting it into Google, seeing how it shows up, because it'll show you who has said this quote, where it comes from. And if you're trying to find scientific answers and it's connecting you to religious societies, probably might not want to trust it. You might want to dig a little deeper, look into it, where it came from, what they're saying, and take the time to differentiate, or not differentiate, to really understand where that information originated from. A very, very, very simple thing, example that I've seen a lot is people will post inspirational quotes and they'll put the name of some famous person that said it. But if you look up the quote, it was said by somebody completely different. And so it's very important for us to check where the information is coming from, who said it, how often it's been said, especially if it's facts, if it's like this number, blah, 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 like this thing happened. You know, I can't think of any examples off the top of my head, but like, if you're getting factual information, if you're getting information that's going to be applied to how people eat, how people act, how people treat themselves, how people like do things, you should be checking, verifying, where does this come from? How true is it? Who said it? Because that can give you a very, very good idea if that information is good or not, good to be used. So some sources, as I said a little bit earlier, are going to be better than others. Reliable sources can depend on the topics that you are covering. Obviously, if you're doing theocracy type work, you will want to get your research off of more like religious organizations. But if you're getting information for like medical purposes, I would steer clear from groups that are focused on those areas. I would hesitate to take advice from groups that are made for a specific purpose. There's a difference between getting your information from what is it? Not NOAA. NIH, National Institute for Health, I think is the acronym. There's a difference between getting your information from them versus from just some interest group that is promoting a certain drug or is promoting a certain type of treatment, or you can probably fill in the blanks. I know it's difficult right now because there's a lot of stuff going on regarding the reputation of government organizations. 5 years ago, I would have said, like, without a doubt, stuff like the WHO and NHS, the census, I would have considered them as trusted sources of information. But with everything that's been happening in our government and some of the stuff that they're doing with their deep pockets and whatever, it some of the stuff might not be as true anymore. There's a bit more manipulation of these sources, defunding of these sources, but I'm not discrediting them because these organizations, the national type research organizations, are still very good sources to go to because they do have a much stronger reputation to uphold, and they vet their sources a lot more than just some random dude on YouTube. That being said, there are also reputable people that use YouTube as a source. So for me personally, I like to cross-check a lot. So even if I find it on one website that I'm like, yeah, that's pretty credible, I will still double check on at least 5 other websites to see what else is being said. What they will sometimes even say, like, as I said, as true scientific organizations should, they'll call out the, like, yeah, this has been said, but this could also be the case. This could also be an explanation, whatever. Looking at all of those types, looking at a variety of sources, will allow you to get a much bigger picture of what's going on. And so I do research on the official websites. I look at NHS. I look at the National Climate Change Research organizations. I look at sometimes look at the governmental websites, not as much lately, but yeah. I also love to use academic research locations such as JSTOR, JSTOR, Google Scholar, PubMed, and like the Library of Congress archive, science.gov. You can even sometimes get access to library websites, and they'll give you full text materials that have been vetted. One of the most important things that you can find on those documents, there's going to be a little square that says peer reviewed. And when it says peer reviewed, that means a bunch of other people have laid eyes on that document. And it's not just the one person publishing it. Multiple people, usually academic organizations, have also read these, edited it, given feedback, stuff like that. Peer-reviewed content is some of the best stuff you can get because it has been seen by a bunch of people as opposed to just the author, because the author will always have bias. But when you include other people in the process, you're going to get more valid, more accurate information, because it's not just the writer. It's a bunch of other people that have expertise in those areas giving feedback and making sure that it's improved to the best of its ability. But I combine these resources. So as I said, I will use these research tools. I will look at official government websites. I will look at the other websites that talk about it, even if they aren't as valid, just to see the types of discussion that is there. And then I'll watch YouTube videos. I'll watch experts that have YouTube channels on those particular topics. I do make sure that I'm choosing people that have degrees, and it's important to verify that they actually do have a degree, because a lot of people, you can say whatever you want on YouTube. You can say that you have a degree, but you don't actually have a degree. So it's important to check as many sources as you possibly can, to make sure that whatever information you are finding is actually accurate. So yeah, so once you've kind of identified where's this information coming from, who is saying this information, why are they sharing this information, for what purpose could they be using this information, those types of things will give you a much better idea if the thing that you're reading can be trusted. You want to know the purpose, because it can give you, like, by knowing who wrote it, you can understand the purpose of that article. It can help you decipher whether it's been created to benefit them, or whether it has just been put out there because they want you to put the information out there. And I won't get into the nitty gritty of this part, but you can definitely tell from the writing if they're trying to sway your opinion or not. If they are trying to guide you away from thinking other things, chances are they're probably doing it to benefit themselves. But if they are accurately or actively exploring the topic and going into other areas, and are acknowledging the limits of their own knowledge, and are basically pointing out other theories, other if they're bringing in other people, like this person has also done research on it, you can look into them. This group has done research on it, look into them. Chances are they're going to be a lot more reliable than somebody who's just like, I know it all, you should just believe me because you should. As you do this type of investigation, it does become easier to suss out people who are doing it just because, and people who are actually wanting the information out there. It does take some work. Obviously, it's hard to get into the habit of like checking everything you're doing, because most people just want to numbly like scroll, click, scroll, click, scroll, click. So I can definitely understand not wanting to put in any of that effort, but honestly, I think it's worth it, because one, it improves your relationship with other people. I've noticed that as I do more research, people are more willing to talk to you, because when you are constantly like feeding people crazy information, people slowly stop wanting to talk to you, because they just kind of are like, oh God, they're going to go on some tangent. They're going to give me information that's not right. Whereas if you're somebody that like actually does the investigation into what you're reading and into what you're sharing with other people, you have information to back up. Like, for example, when I talk to my parents about a certain topic, or my family about a certain topic, I'll always say like, I found on this website that this XYZ happened, and I also found it on these other websites where they were also saying the same thing, because I try and provide where they can also look this up for themselves, because it's much easier to like tell somebody something when you can be like, yes, this is the thing, here's the article, here's where I found it, than to like aggressively vouch for it. No, I read it, I know it's true because I read it. It's so much easier to hold these conversations when you actually have the information at your fingertips and can just be like, well, see, look, here's where it says it. So it improves your conversations with other people. As I said earlier, it improves your reputation on social media, because people can tell. Like, they can tell when you are there to provide valuable information and when you are there just to get rage bait. One of my personal examples, is there's a YouTuber that I really liked a lot, and last year there was around Santorini, there was a series of earthquakes, a big series of earthquakes, like hundreds, thousands of earthquakes. And she was putting out all these videos saying, like, it's about to erupt. They should evacuate the island. Like, we're about to see like a super volcanic eruption. I'm so sure of this, and blah, blah, blah. And I followed her videos for a while without looking into her, because in my head, I was already convinced. I was like, yeah, that sounds accurate. But I didn't look into her. And when I finally did look into her, I found out she didn't even have a degree. She didn't live in Italy like she said she did. She was not a volcanologist. She had no degrees in science whatsoever. And she had just been posting this stuff, and most of what she was saying was just based off of whatever random information she pulled off of other websites. And she was also like taking information from other YouTubers. And it was sad. Like, I had been watching her videos a lot, and that is something that normal people can experience too, where if you're constantly putting out bad information, eventually people aren't going to want to talk to you, because they're not going to trust the information that you're saying. Like, I mean, we all probably have that friend, the one that goes on the alien tangent or the government conspiracy tangents, where you're just like, yeah, all right, there you go again. There they go on another tangent. It's a lot more fun and less stressful for family members and friends to talk to people that know what they're talking about and talk out of passion, rather than people that just want to like blurt out whatever they've seen on the news and think is crazy, and, you know, going on some crazy tangents. I'm like, we all probably know people like that. So it's something that you kind of want to do for yourself too, to make sure that what you're talking about with other people, what you're sharing on social media and within your social circles, is actually beneficial to the people around you, and isn't just some crazy made up garbage that has been passed around the internet. And when you do, once you verify the information, it's also really important to share this information correctly, particularly if you are, if you're just reposting an article. That is one thing, because obviously the person's name and organization is attached to that article. If you're resharing the YouTube thing, obviously their information is attached and whatnot. But if you're copy pasting, like you're taking a paragraph or a sentence or a quote or whatever, make sure you always add a hyperlink. That way somebody can click and go to the website wherever you got that from. And B, or if you do the hyperlink, you're pretty set from there. But if you aren't connecting it to an actual article, put who said it and when. Put the person and the date, and preferably the location that you found it on, because this allows people to, like, oh, I want to know more about this thing that you said, or this quote that you put, or this picture that you took. Now I know where to find it. It also gives that person credit, because it's icky to take someone else's work, and yeah, you're on social media and you're not like saying this is my original thought, but it's still their stuff, their hard work, their reputation, their degree, whatever they did to get to that level of expertise. You have to give people credit, whether they're a writer, a poet, a scientist, a researcher, whatever they are. Give them the credit for what they said. So when you find information that you want to put out there, say where you got that information from, say who said it, and put the date. Because especially now with how rapidly things are changing, dates are very important. It can give you an idea of if it's out of date. For example, if you're putting a fact that's from 1880, that's not going to be as accurate as something that was found in 2025. So you want to make sure that you put that type of information. That way anybody proceeding who reads what you're posting is able to understand how to follow up and find more of what you had mentioned and talked about. And it gives the people who originally came up with those ideas credit. It's so rampant right now where people's work is just getting reposted. Pictures are reposted, quotes, everything that are not attributed to them. And that is a loss of engagement on their websites. That is a loss of their own reputation, because if their work is just being spread without any attachment to them, nobody knows what they did. And it could very easily be attributed to somebody random. As I mentioned at the beginning, I've seen so many quotes where people are like, Gandhi said this, and it was actually like some random like singer or something. Like people love to put quotes without checking who actually said the quote, and it's crazy the types of things that you'll see that are incorrectly attributed to, like Gandhi said this, or the Bible said this, or whatever said this, and it was not them. I remember there was one that I saw recently where they're saying, I forgot who they said it originally, but it was like Hannibal Lecter or something. That was actually the person who said it. So yeah, make sure you put the information associated with the type of stuff that you're posting, especially if you're not just reposting it, but you're taking it from somewhere and then posting it for yourself. Give them the credit. And then lastly, when you repost or when you're on social media, if you see information that is not correct, call it out. Don't be afraid to say, hey, here's some data to show that this particular thing is not actually true. Because even if the poster, like maybe they get mad at you, they're like, well, I found it. You know how people can be territorial over their stuff. It still gives the people that are reading a chance to understand that what they're reading might not be actually accurate. Don't be afraid to even repost it on your own page and be like, hey, I saw this going around. This isn't actually true. Here's a link to the actual information, blah, 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 blah. It is our job as users of social media, as users of the internet, to make sure that we are being as due diligent as we possibly can. We are the ones that guide the direction that social media takes. We are the ones that decide what type of content gets promoted in the algorithm. We are the ones that really decide what information is seen as valid or not. And so we have the responsibility as users, as posters, as likers to put that out there and to make sure that other people know when things are true and when things are not. And as I said, if you see things that are not true, don't be afraid to say it. Don't be afraid to point out things that aren't true. Don't be afraid to challenge your friend, your family member, whoever who's spreading misinformation, and redirecting them. And if you have to, go into why it's important, because sometimes people are just doing it just because they thought it was funny or thought it was fun, but it can do more damage than we realize to pass around this false information. We have seen the damage that false information has done to vaccine mandates. We've seen what it's done with climate change action. We've seen what it has done in the political spheres. We've seen what it's done in the medical spheres. We, as I said, we as users have that responsibilities, because the owners of social media, they don't care. As long as they're getting their money, they don't care what's on social media. They're not going to get in trouble for it because they didn't post it. It's just what's there. We are the ones that decide what type of content is okay to be up there. And if we are the ones reposting bad information, and are allowing ourselves to spread things that are fake just because they're funny, we're telling people who own those algorithms that's what we want. That's what we want to see. And they will use that against us. If any of you have read 1984, if a lie gets repeated enough, it becomes the truth. And we cannot allow that to be our future. We cannot allow falsities to be the accepted truths of our future. And as I said, that's our responsibility. So just wanted to talk about this because of the prevalence of all of these issues, all the lies, all the crazy clickbaity stuff that exists out there. So in summary, it's important for us to provide good information for our own reputations as owners of social media accounts, for the safety of those who are reading the posts on our social media accounts, to prevent the spread of bad information, and to limit the damage of people who are putting out disinformation, who are trying to deceive us and manipulate us with poor, made-up information. We want to validate and vet all of the sources that we're using. Check the data, check the quotes, check the information that we're putting out, because just because somebody said it does not mean it's true. We have the responsibility to make sure that the stuff that we are putting on our own accounts and the people that we follow are giving out information that is actually beneficial for everyone around us. And misinformation is not going to be beneficial for us in the long run. So use academic sources, use governmental websites with just discernment. Know that even professionals will make mistakes. They're not always going to be completely accurate. There's always going to be limitations to expertise, but we do the best we can to validate the sources and understand what we're reading, and to know the trustworthiness of the sources. We can definitely make the internet a much, much better place. And just because I said it, unlike Miss Volcano Woman, I do have my degree. So in case any of you wondered, I'm not lying. I do have my degree. So I just want to put that out there so you know I'm a valid source of information. Thank you for watching. I hope you learned a lot, and I hope you enjoyed improving your internet usage.
Examining his own attitude towards the possibilities of peace, towards the Soviet Union, towards the course of the Cold War.
It was a way